I want to play a news clip here. Now, again, this is research that is still relatively new on the effects of COVID-19 on the brain. There's going to be more studies being done. But we have some new information here. And again, this is relatively new. It's very possible in the future we'll have a different understanding of these mechanisms. But COVID affects the brain. COVID is not the flu. COVID is a deadly virus that fundamentally changes how your organs function. So, this is an article from 9 News Sydney. Now, note, this is not in the United States of America. Let's watch.
We know what long COVID is. We know the debilitating symptoms so many suffer. But we haven't known the reason why until now. Sydney scientists think they've cracked the code, and their research is being recognised around the world.
Research chemist Ole Tietz is fitter than most. A long-distance runner who's been hit for 6 by long COVID. Not once, but twice.
It's really surprised me because I like to consider myself quite an active guy and I love running, and then all of a sudden you get COVID and you find it difficult to get up the stairs. You know, I feel like you have to go to sleep all the time.
Down the hallway at Macquarie Uni, his fellow researchers think they know why. They have discovered the COVID-19 virus confused brain cells together, causing them to malfunction or stop working.
It could explain some of the neurological symptoms that have been associated with COVID, like loss of smell or brain fog.
So, how did they do it? They created mini brains. This is them, tiny white spots created from human stem cells.
It's really exciting because I think we are really closely mimicking what we see in the brain.
There's another remarkable strand to this story. After the mini brain was created here at Macquarie University, it was transported by plane from Sydney to Brisbane. And there, researchers with the Queensland Brain Institute infected the mini brain with the COVID virus. In the pink, normal cells, but in yellow, a mass of fused cells.
I want to pause it here for a moment. 99.99% of American kids have been forced by the United States government to contract COVID multiple times. This is according to the government's own statistics. I don't know why they would even admit this, but this is one thing they did admit. Look it up on the CDC's website. You can look up the prevalence of COVID infections under the age of 18. 99.99% of Americans under the age of 18 have been forced at gunpoint to be infected multiple times by a deadly virus. Now, when I say at gunpoint, let me expand upon that because people might get triggered. What happens if you don't go to school? Police show up at your house. When police show up at your house and tell you to do something, what happens? If you say no, they have a monopoly of violence. That violence often extends to guns. If you don't go to school and get infected with COVID and get indoctrinated with American mythology and get indoctrinated with other capitalistic drone-like breaking down of the soul, then what happens? Thugs, gangsters with guns show up at your front door and drag you. That's what happens. It happened to me as a kid. I've said this story before. I had chronic health issues as a kid. My school threw out my doctor's notes and called the cops anyway. I don't know why. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. Who knows? Maybe I'll go and ask those motherfuckers one of these days. But, I had cops come to my house and force me, in some instances, to go to school against my wishes while I was chronically ill, resulting in traumatic experiences in my childhood where I was extremely sick at school. I was obviously sick at school. I was probably spreading an illness to other kids. And why? Because gangsters with guns forced me to do so. And thankfully, when I was going to school, there was no COVID. So again, I just want people to understand this. 99.9% of kids got forced by the government. But I don't know, man. What happened to protect the kids? If I ever had a child, and I am not planning on having a child, but you never know. I could have, at some point, change my mind. But if I ever have a kid, you know what I would do? I would do anything to protect my child. You often hear people say that. They're lying. They wouldn't do anything to protect their child. They actively did nothing to protect their child from COVID. They actively made it worse. Whenever you hear parents in a country where 99.99% of kids were forced to go to school during an infectious disease pandemic, whenever you hear parents say, I would do anything for my kids, I need you to understand that that's total and complete bullshit. But why do they say it? Because they want to sound like moral people. Not just to the world around them, but to themselves. It's a story that they tell themselves. If something happened, I would be there and rush to my child's defense. They don't mean it. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They did nothing about COVID. Most parents in this country actively made it worse. Most parents in this country are like, we need to open the school, man. Most parents in this country actively wanted their children to get even sicker. But again, we can play the blame game. Oh, it's the government. Oh, it's the truant officers. Oh, it's the president. It's the governor. It's this. It's that. It's woo. But fundamentally, what is the natural urge of a parent when it comes to their child? To protect them, right? Not if you're an American. Not if you're an American. So next time you hear someone say, I would do anything to protect my kid, and if they have a kid under the age of 18 who's going to school, you know they're full of shit. But the real question is, do they know that they're full of shit? Probably not, because they're a fucking zombie. Let's keep going.
The COVID virus hides behind evading the body's immune system.
In 10% of the experimental conditions, the neuronal activity completely stopped.
Researchers don't have a way of unfusing those damaged cells yet, but the Macquarie Uni team have now patented a drug they believe will lessen the viral load and stop the brain cells fusing, giving the COVID virus no place to hide. In Ryde, Mark Burrows, 9 News.
So again, they're going to develop a drug. How great. And in America, that drug is going to be owned by a corporation that you're probably going to have to spend thousands of dollars for. So that's great. But that's one of the other things that people, not just Americans, they're always like, oh, we can solve this. In the future, we can solve it. We'll get a drug. The magic bullet. The magic bullet that will keep us all safe. I've got a magic bullet. It's called stay the fuck home, wear a mask, read the fucking news. That's the magic fucking bullet. But no, I gotta take a super drug, a magic pill, a magic shot, something. Something. It's gotta be magic. Because people don't operate in the real world. People operate in magic land. And, you know, again, I look at this and I see, what are children? They are human beings that don't even have a fully developed brain. So if this kind of thing would happen to someone whose brain is not even fully formed, we know what happens when you give children lead in gasoline or in water. What does it do? It stunts the development of their brain, which results in what? Less empathy, more aggression, lower intelligence. But don't worry. In the future, we can create a magic thing that will solve all of these problems. Right? Right? Let's not fix our diet now. let's not drink clean water now. Let's not breathe clean air now. Let's wait until the future so that we can like take a magic drug that's going to solve all of our problems. This pack of cigarettes isn't going to kill me, so why stop now? Anyway, there you go.